How we doing out there? I'm going to be going through the book of Ezra. And Ezra, the whole book of Ezra is the power of prophecy being fulfilled. And a lot of people today seem to compare King Cyrus to Donald Trump. But I'll let y'all make y'all's opinion on that. But I will give mine. King Cyrus had an awareness of God. And King Cyrus respected God and had an eagerness to do God's will because he was spoken to by God. So we have here in Ezra is the history of the early days of the Jewish people's return from the 70-year captivity in Babylon. And the whole Old Testament is about the nation of Israel. So we start off here in Ezra, verse 1. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing. Now, why are we talking about Cyrus, the king of Persia? Well, Israel rebelled against God. He judged them, and he put them into captivity for 70 years to the Babylonians. And then the Persians came around, commanded by King Cyrus, and the Persians took over Babylon. So Babylon became the new captors. And we're talking about the king of Persia because he's going to do God's will. And Jeremiah prophesied it. So let's go over here to Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 10. For thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you, and perform my good word toward you, in causing you to return to this place. What place? The land of Israel. And Jeremiah predicted this captivity of Israel. And God promised their return back to the promised land. Well, how? Well, second part of verse 1. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia. God worked within the innards of Cyrus and worked in him to accomplish his will. We talk all the time about how God works through the hands of man, whether good men or bad men, harlot women or modest women. God works through people to accomplish his will. And in Proverbs 21:1, Proverbs 21:1, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. God's going to do what he wants to do in history to achieve his final will. It's that simple. He'll work through anybody. And yes, he even works through our presidents, whether you like them or not, whether they've done good or harm to any country. I know it's hard to believe sometimes, but he's working through them, through their words. Sometimes they'll say things and don't even have an awareness for it, what they're saying. But what they say has a universal effect. And it affects the whole scheme of things that goes on in this life. Now, how's God turned the hearts of kings? Well, he turned the heart of Pharaoh to Joseph, king of Egypt, giving a dream to Joseph back there in Genesis. So, there's evidence of it all through the Bible. And God predicted the birth of a man named King Cyrus. And he predicted his name, his birth, and what he was going to do God's will. And God's predictions, they're not vague like, let's say, a Nostradamus. They're rock solid predictions, and they come in right on time when he wills them to be and wills them to happen. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 45, verse 1. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. And I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. He's going to give Cyrus the power to subdue nations and loose the loins of kings. What if a God predicted your birth? That'd be something, wouldn't it? God stirred the heart of Cyrus. You know, the Jewish historian, Josephus. Now, Josephus was not inspired by God, like the prophets were and the apostles were. But it said that the prophet Daniel showed verse 2 to King Cyrus, which we're going to read here next. We don't know for sure if it was Daniel that showed verse 2 to Cyrus. But Daniel had the king's ear. He interpreted dreams for King Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel was a highfalutin man in Babylon. So, we don't know who really showed him that verse. But what Cyrus is going to do, he's going to free millions of slaves. And it's going to financially, it would financially hurt any country to just up and get rid of slaves. Just to get rid of them. It would hurt any country. There'd no longer be men there to harvest the fields, to tend to the roads, to work on the chariots that have gotten worn out, iron workers, to make weaponry. You get rid of your slaves, you get rid of all that. Now, why are we freeing slaves here? Well, the issue in the Civil War was that the South succeeded because they knew that Abraham Lincoln was going to free the slaves. And it was, you can bet it was hard to get through Congress for Mr. Lincoln to go and make a request to free slaves. Now, do you think it was hard for King Cyrus, to get rid of slaves, to pass through Congress? Not at all. Kings got what they wanted back in the Old Testament. What a king wanted, the king got. And in those days, you sold slaves, and you got something for them. People paid currency or bartered for slaves. So let's go to Isaiah 45:13 and keep all that in mind. Isaiah 45:13. I have raised him up in righteousness, and I will direct all his ways. He shall build my city, and he shall let go my captives, not for price, nor reward, saith the Lord of hosts. Isaiah here is prophesying that he shall build my city. He shall let go my captives, not for price nor reward. And Cyrus let them go. He let the slaves go. And God told him to do it. And Cyrus knew he would be a king for God, for the sake of God, for God's will. He knew he would be a king. Now let's read Ezra verse 2. Thus saith King Cyrus of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judea. God's going to clear all the obstacles out of the way to make King Cyrus build him a temple. Let's go to Isaiah 44:28. Thus saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd. He's God's shepherd. And shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple thy foundation shall be laid. It's all in here. So you might ask, didn't they already have a temple? Ezra's going to come on the scene here and help old Cyrus out in chapter 5 or 6. But right now Cyrus is getting a crew together. But there's already a temple in Israel. Didn't Solomon build one? He sure did. And we know what happened to that temple, don't we? Let's go to 2 Chronicles, chapter 36, verse 19. And they burnt the house of God, and brake it down, the wall of Jerusalem, and burnt all the palaces thereof with fire, and destroyed all the goodly vessels thereof. They had a temple, and with the rebellion, God allowed it to be destroyed. And God is commanding Cyrus to build him a temple, to rebuild the city. Ezra verse 3. And I will give thee the treasures of darkness, and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which call thee by thy name, am the God of Israel. So you see here, Cyrus is going to build God a temple. And because Cyrus is going to rebuild a temple, we might see, those that are saved might see him again. You might see Cyrus again. Why? I believe he was saved. He blessed Israel. Let's go to Genesis 12:3 quickly. Genesis 12:3. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. In the Old Testament, if you blessed Israel, you were blessed. And King Cyrus blessed Israel. That was, in those days, that was the Gentiles' plan of salvation. Now, Cyrus is a king. Cyrus is a king, but he's not going to build the temple himself with his hands. And he's not even sending in his construction crew. And we'll get into that next time. Till next time.